Please don't you forget to subscribe and hit the bell. My Little Pony, the movie, premiered on Christmas 1986 in Brazil. That, however, was the first generation of MLP to be more popular. Its predecessor, My Pretty Pony, had been transformed in 1982 and started having animations in 1984, basically pointing out that girls would like cartoons with horses, or maybe just ponies, because Wildfire had but one season.
Ah, the little people, they love me so.
Wildfire has its charm, but it's not that good. Fortunately, the Brazilian version improved the cartoon quite a bit, thanks to the dub. The only thing I'd say might be better in the original is the horse's name. We got Cavalo de Fogo, meaning horse of fire, so it seems a bit less meaningful. Our Rapidash here was a victim of a translation tradition we have, which oversimplifies everything. Nevertheless, when you see the original, the charm goes down considerably. It seems written for very small children, besides being too stretched to reach 22 minutes, in an episode that has about 11 minutes of content in most cases. Even Something of the Time, trying to remain positive, couldn't avoid saying it had problems. Of course, I have to point out, there could be some prejudging in that. As mentioned, it's almost impossible they didn't think of an audience of girls, with the huge number of horse characters and the princess, and what she might become. But in some episodes, there are elements more clearly directed to a boys' audience. Very likely, they were already introducing elements to better balance the cartoon, but I'd say they were not successful. The world is a layer of generic fairy tale over a pretty standard kids cartoon structure. We have the standard enemy we'll see almost every time, in this case Diabolin, the kind of sorceress who wanna be queen. Depending on the episode, she might be interested in any person, place or thing the script requires, almost never having a good explanation.
Now, wouldn't you like to have a wonderful person like me as your queen?
You don't vote for kings?
We also have various characters, including her servants, the world's inhabitants, etc., who could be there or be discarded, since they basically contribute nothing. The threats, likewise, last an episode, sometimes less.
All right, you rabble, back to the specters of darkness from whence you came.
In a few better written episodes, the lack of development allows for a story to be made up pretty much from scratch. There being no clear rules means they can do whatever they want, be it lazy or quite ingenious. For instance, in the second episode, we have a group of children who are making a merry-go-round and live hidden from the world, eventually revealing they have a magic wand they can use to petrify, woodify, they keep themselves young with said wand, at the end of the day being convinced that being stuck in time was bad. It's not wonderful, but works well enough. We have horses talking about the many of them who'd gone missing, the characters that are distracted from the problem are children, the search party even has a small role in showing how the children could stay hidden. It's pretty basic, but the elements are there, even if not that well done. There's a story here, though it's an overly simplistic Peter-Pan, so it ends up being average for a kid's cartoon. Conversely, in the following episodes, we have two villages that are going to join together through marriage, because they couldn't be families or guilds apparently, and they fought over a chalice given by the former queen to the valley. But the fiancé disappeared, and there's a creature attacking one of the villages, a creature that's the fiancé transformed by Diabolin because she wants the chalice, a chalice from which both of them drink at the wedding, but that's not shown as having any magic, but undoes the spell over the groom. Wait a second, wasn't it the kiss? Well, they don't say it was the kiss, so I have to imagine it was the chalice and there was some magic. Why else would Diabolin even want it, if it weren't special in some way?
Don't worry, it was a great plan, your evilness. It's not that, you fool! I always cry at weddings!
Moreover, he is a terrible monster, cause he's tall and has long hair and beard. Not being able to speak is kind of a problem, but not only do we have a prize we know very little about, if he wrote something down, we'd already know who he is. And how the hell does a queen give a chalice to the valley? There would certainly be some indication of who is responsible for it and should keep it. One of the few episodes leaning more towards comedy, King for a Day, starts with Diaboline making a wish to a well, a wishing well, after one of her henchmen suggests it. She gives up a bit too early and the wish goes to a frog. The frog becomes a king and acts more like a jester.
This is kind of strange.
Yeah, strange, Charlie, but it's fun.
Gets Wildfire's protection and has his own palace and is recognized by the people. Diaboline decides to seduce him, the king wanting a kiss throughout the episode. Our heroes are arrested, our villainess getting dominion over the purple horse, and it all leads to the coronation ball, where the king announces his wedding. The heroes tear up, the villains party, and the kiss undoes the whole thing. Oh, and we have a little homage at the end. It still seems a bit stretched, but it's fun. It's not as if the animation here is much better, but it ain't asking you to buy musty medieval maxims indiscriminately in a vacuum. In another episode, we have an adaptation of Rumpelstiltskin with a bit of Beauty and the Beast, which I'd say is genuinely good. The small blue coat and his generic friends fall into a trap. Here do 2 apples instead of roses. The troll who saves them wants the horse, but gives them a chance to recover him if they find the troll's house and discover his name, giving just a clue at first and one more by the end. As the episode goes, they visit the troll's victims, each having their examples of how terrible his punishment can be, plus one single person who was able to defeat him, and using a bit of help from that wizard, on top of the tip and an idea from Sarah, they're able to win. It's particularly interesting. The characters are quite distinct, including feline marauders, an all-knowing wizard, and a tree with a horse's face. The lands, equally, are different from one another, there being, at the same time, a difference between the original idea and this version. In that fairy tale, depending on the version, the troll is somehow vain and doesn't hide his name as well as he should. Here, on the other hand, his name is formed by parts of the land's names that survived the wizard's fire. While this happens, Sarah's Native American friend was in a holy place, looking for her dream name. It's not implied this helps her think of the troll's name exactly, but it seems relevant thematically. On top of that, the wizard still had to help Sarah, so it's not like she's smart as him, but smart enough to try to learn from him, which works very well for a future queen. I can't really speak about Native American representation here. I have no idea how respectful it is or isn't. There seems to be the intention of showing respect. When Sarah asks about the dream name, her friend explains that it shouldn't be said to anyone, and she understands, which seems to be here in order to show that Sarah respects her and her people's traditions. However, in another episode we have Sarah buying one of her friend's people's artifacts, which they can't decipher, on which she decides to use a brush and ends up revealing more of it. It's quite forced from a logical point of view. She decides to do that because of a painting with magic that shows up in the episode. And man, she is very, very lucky it doesn't turn into that deformed Jesus face. On top of that, you might say that trying to solve an artifact's puzzle is kind of a trope. Okay, but then the result is that the artifact talks about Sarah and Wildfire. I even like the idea of an axis of all the people, like Ichigo and Bleach, but those people are made up, you know? Native Americans exist. Like the attempt to be respectful falls flat. Almost as if, let's say, you put a native child in spandex, suggesting she lives with a tribe at the same time, and placing her together with buildings and a robot that tries to clean a dirt road. This episode, that part notwithstanding, has one of the better stories. Pixies show up, which in Brazil kinda turned into leprechauns and look more like hobbits, everyone knowing that they paint the future. Specifically, who'll be the future queen. Throughout the episode, they say they see with more than their eyes, and even they don't know what the result will be. When Diaboline tries to force them to paint her portrait, they say traces of royalty can be seen in both. Give examples, and Diaboline thinks it'd be a contest, everyone following wanting to see who'd win. First, we have two wagons trying to get by a bridge. Diaboline says bolsonaroly that The minority has to bow to the majority, and therefore, they must throw the other wagon in the river. Our heroes help save the wagon, and Sarah says a broken part of the bridge is about halfway through, so she suggests whoever gets there first would have preference from then on. After that, her henchmen pretend to be kids, so Diaboline can pretend to care, but make her fall and curse at them. Sarah then hears a lost girl crying and helps her find her mother. Then she says she'll save her servants from a part of the mountain, but the storm created by the specters causes an avalanche, Sarah and Wildfire having to save mother and daughter, and Wildfire having to save a house. Finally, the pixies finish their painting of Diaboline, in which she's making a face. Irritated, she throws something at the portrait, and it transforms, showing Wildfire and Sarah. It's much better than most. Essentially, you can read the painting as Diaboline continuing to have negative influence until her own actions lead to Sarah becoming the new queen, which hopefully won't desecrate artifacts, hoping to see more of her own image. Various elements seem to just be thrown in. The opening says that when the queen died, Wildfire brought her daughter to our world to protect her. In the 5th episode, we go back in time because and we see that our major villain found and opened an urn containing the specters, cousins to Mamra's spirits of evil, wanting to stop her stepsister's wedding because she wants to take the throne. At the same time, we see her henchmen become monstrous for opening the urn. So, how come the specters needed Diaboline to open the urn later? In fact, how did they become those? They don't seem to be possessed. When she opens the urn and asks for the specters' help, they give the Four the power to fly and make it rain. The Royal Guard, which were shown to be incompetent, were bigger and now are small. We'll be able to stop the prince because they fly and there's a storm, which doesn't even seem all that violent. This is a good example of how the planning is lacking. Why flight? They could have got wings when they became monsters. Why a storm? It could have been rain focused on the path, so it was muddy and the carriage gets stuck. The storm simply goes away when the prince is saved. Diaboline just decides to dress as she usually does, and then is banished, cursing the couple to have only one more year together. But this isn't done by the specters. It's Diaboline talking. She doesn't seem to have any magic powers outside of the specters any other time. If you're gonna be inspired by Maleficent, why wouldn't you steal the good part? Maleficent is a recognized person, despite being evil, at a time when you'd be expected to be invited simply for being recognized. Diaboline is an evil stepsister the people openly hate.
They love me so.
The curse Maleficent uses is a distorted gift. Like the three fairies, she gives something to the princess for seeing her life as an adult. She doesn't wait for over a decade for nothing. For her, it's a terrible and evil joke. Here, somehow this person seems to depend on the specters to have magic, but can also curse. On top of giving them time to escape her curse for no reason, we also have all the problems time travel can have here. Who saved the couple before she time traveled? Who taught Wildfire he should run as fast as possible and jump to be able to go to another dimension? Fire! You have to reach 88 miles per hour!
I don't know what that is in kilometers.
Only on top of that, we have countless ideas poorly thought out.
My leg!
It's broken!
Yeah, I'm sure this was sad to show there'd be a serious issue, but you're pointing at having to sacrifice Wildfire. Either that, or kids will think this is curable, which definitely wasn't at the time. The way to save him is also dependent on the most magical of beings, who are just grey aliens, but bluish. The execution is also not very good, as we see with this open test tube being shaken up and down without a single drop falling. In an episode about a heroic outlaw, he's revealed to be working for Diaboline. His page says he's going away, and then we have this full stop so he can look back and we can see the characters completely still, just looking. Another moment of him talking to his horse, he goes back and throws gold coins saying he rejects his payment, but further than the tiny eyes on his mount, clearly he still has the bag on the horse, which must have weight, but the horse doesn't know he's carrying gold, even if the outlaw would have to take it off if he were to return it. On the Pixies episode, everyone in Darshan must have bad eyes not to see the children and people saved by Diaboline are the same creatures that don't even look to be common in that world, but it still works well, with wise characters never showing themselves to be superior, and the contest coming from Diaboline and the public. There are little comments from the Pixies suggesting these expectations are wrong, though it could be done better. Yet, we have this character, who I'm sure was supposed to be funny for being ugly, but it's only a bit too basic. It's once upon a dream inside a fairy tale. And if they're so medieval to that point, she could have just have taken some potion or be cursed. Damn, remember the ogre? That dare being tall and hairy? You've established seeing with more than your eyes with the Pixies, but the script doesn't seem to know what that means. In an episode, they establish there are dragons and a dragon wall separating their territory from the human city, but children can simply go to the troublesome territory of terrible titanic terror to see dragons and bring an egg with them. That after establishing the dragon's power. In that episode, suddenly we have fire seed, which they can use to light fires, but would be something used even in other parts of Darshan. After angering a dragon, he destroys their warehouse, then they have to go to a mill inside the dragon's territory. But if it isn't already imbecilic, there being no mills inside the land protected by the wall, the children were able to bring an egg almost the size of the little blue horse, and no one noticed. The baby dragon is born, the mom stops attacking when she sees it, they go back to town and use the baby as bait to attack the dragon couple that comes to save it. Finally, mid-attack, the colt goes to help the baby, is captured, Sarah goes to free the baby right after, being helped by her generic fella. The baby flies to his mom, as the badly animated man would, licking the horsey. The mom lands and gives the colt back, the couple goes away with the baby, we finish with Sarah wishing they didn't have to be afraid of dragons, and Wildfire saying that will happen if she's that assertive. Oh, and joke from the blue horse.
No, I love to fly.
Plus her going back home and saying goodbye to fill the episode. Throughout this one, we have a guy talking about dragons and how horrible they are. It seems obvious he'd be like Captain Ahab, but his attitude seems pretty reasonable. He doesn't focus in killing the dragons until they seem to be a threat. By the end, he even says he's learned something new, so it seems they portray him so differently, it's almost unrecognizable. He breaks from the road too much to be a reference to Moby Dick they wanted him to be. This episode also has a choice in production that's one of the funniest to me.
Now no playing around, right to sleep.
Right before, the guy is talking about dragons, and the music is already weird.
Well, every now and then you can see them from the top of the dragon wall. Mothers are right about most things.
Clearly they wanted to set the tone.
You'll frighten them with all your talk about dragons.
They should be afraid of dragons.
But it's on too long apart, instead of starting with they should be afraid, as well as, of course, continuing to the next part.
Good night, boys.
Yahoo! I think it's worth talking about the 12th episode, in which Sarah is presented to her father.
It's all true. I am your father.
Damn, that's not bad at all, don't even think that way. Sarah protests, of course, but...
Here are the documents and the court order. You have no choice.
Yep, social services doesn't care about adoptions. Super legit. The father takes her immediately to...
We'll be living pretty far away from here.
To inside a fairy tale. Sarah leaves her amulet with her adoptive father, and the car becomes a horse to travel to their shop. Meanwhile, Diaboline can't summon her specters. The aliens talk about Sarah Sarah being in danger, the new father says he isn't a friend of Wildfire, who is in our world looking for Sarah. The henchman can't find anything in the well, and Diabling wants to recapture the specters. Wildfire hears Sarah's friend getting the news, and her adoptive father sees him approach, recognizing him as the Prince of Darshan and the amulet transforming him, which means giving him wardrobe, and Wildfire says he brought him to escape Diabolin's curse. A ferret people tries to stop the villain, but he has magic and his horse can knock houses like dominoes. Sarah tries to escape, but is recaptured. The prince and Wildfire reach the castle to see the specters aren't there. Diabolin recognizes the specters' work at the ferret village. The guy creates a place so they are in the middle of the abyss, with a smoke screen so it's cheaper. The guy reveals it's the specters. Diabolin arrives, Prince arrives, specters destroy the urn, saying it's the amulets that can defeat them. The prince uses the amulet to catch their fireballs, throwing them back like it's Monica in the Dragon's Castle. Wildfire takes them away while it all falls apart. They stop and explain to Sarah, say they can't stay so the curse doesn't happen. Diabolin says her henchmen have to dig the specters out, and we see Sarah saying it was all a dream to her father. That's both adoptive and birth. All he needs is to be by voter majority. It's a standard adventure, not exactly uninteresting, but still weaker than it could have been. It seems stretched with all the stops for a Diabolin and the village on the way. I know they wanted to give clues for the mystery, but it just doesn't seem well done. At least there's the intention of developing the story, even if not that good. Our season ends with Wildfire being summoned to become king of the horses, leaving Sarah, Fella, and Colt in the middle of a centaur stealing horses without saying anything by order of the current queen. And then she says Wildfire has to save the horses from their mortal enemy, which is the guy he left there to go speak with her. In this episode, Wildfire has a rival, meets a mare that seems to be a romantic interest for 3 seconds, but then we see she's the rival's wife. Diabolin is in on it too, with a whip that lets them control the horses to go destroy their sanctuary. In fact, she got that from the specters according to herself. Hadn't they decided to act on their own? Why would they be helping? Horses in military formation, Colt recovers his sanity after having been hypnotized as well. The rival talks against Wildfire, who says they should listen.
We need a leader who's been loyal to the sanctuary.
Everyone's still wanting Wildfire, and the rival goes away with his family. Sarah arrives right before the attack, fighting between horses. Rival's family decides to go back right on time to be threatened by the arch-rival of the whole, Earth? Wildfire's rival, Wild Thunder, comes back. They win. He recognizes Wildfire, and the queen shows up magically to say Wild Thunder is going to be the new king. Again, more of a standard adventure, but this one is even weaker than the one before. What there is to show Wildfire's story is minimal, and really underdeveloped. Outside of Wild Thunder and his family, we barely have anything. An episode that's nostalgic to me is Strangers in the Night. Sarah goes to Darshan to meet the Great Horse Chieftains and get their support. But while they wait, her mate and her explore a castle and find a collection of small statues with a lit lantern. The mate that's always craps the bed. Gets the lantern so they can see better on the way back. They hear sounds that scare them and let the lantern fall, saying they wouldn't tell anyone because they were both scared. With that, the inhabitants of Darshan start being shown with various problems, starting with someone that went to check on the statuettes, going by this unfunny joke, but also this one that's a bit better.
Have you noticed anything strange going on around here today?
Yep.
This might be a good example of the hits and misses of the series. We have both a joke, weak due to execution, as well as a good joke, plus one in the middle that's basically the old woman is equated to an animal joke. The chieftains go away saying those are bad omens. The children confess when the old man says they're goblins. When they find the one responsible for the lantern, he explains its light keeps them petrified. The horse chieftains are caught by the goblins, found by chance by Wildfire and Sarah, who were looking for the goblins without any indication of where they would have gone, and the chieftain's crowns and Sarah's amulet are taken. Finally, they go and talk to the high chief of all the horses, who explains the goblins are just an annoyance, but they want to free their leader, who is really mean. They go where she says their master is imprisoned. Suddenly, the goblins are getting stuff because they're made of metal to attract lightning. There's a small indication beforehand, but it still seems thrown in, and a bolt makes the door open in this poorly done effect. I mean, there's never been an electric storm at that place? For decades and decades? No one thought of placing a lightning rod near it and diverting the boats that might fall there? Well, it's food fight logic, so nobody wins here. Despite stopping the goblins, and it's a struggle, where's her fire seed now? Oh right, it's only within that dragon episode. Is Sarah going to the same Darshan every time? It's not as if they talked about a land of dragons in the episode with a map. However, the goblins free their master just before being petrified. Who is even able to stop Wildfire, but when he tries to use lightning to hit Sarah, the bolt is deflected by the amulet and sends him back to prison, and that's it. The door closes, Wildfire says she's very brave, the chieftains take the goblins to the Lantern Keeper, and they end on a little joke that's meh.
At least we'll bring our own lantern.
I remember this episode being better, but it's the most you can expect from Wildfire. Basic stuff that might not be well done, stories continuing without being well founded, and characters acting this or that way just because it's on the script. But it's not exactly bad, just too basic to be for all ages, I'd say. For those interested, Strangers in the Night would be the best episodes, also possibly being interesting The Name is the Game and King for a Day. Maybe if you like those, Where Dreams Come From, The King of the Horses, and The Pixie Painters might be worth a watch. Please don't you forget to subscribe and hit the bell.